Current events update. Israel at war, 9/24/25, and the hostage situation remains the same. Hamas continues its wicked abuses. I don't know if you saw this. They released a picture of a young man. I think it's just Elon Ohel. His family released this photo, but they said that the photo of him following the release of a Hamas video on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, in a statement, the family said, "These are not Elon's eyes," because he had lost vision in one eye.
So that's not him.
I guess that's what they're saying. I looked in for any more comment on it, and they didn't say. So, I don't know. We hope to see evidence of life, you know. Of course, the families hope to see evidence of life. So, we just keep praying about that. As the war continues, there were 20 in Israel injured after a Houthi drone attacked the southern city of Eliat. The what we call the Red Cross, they call it the Magen David, which we talked about last week, the Star of David. Ambulance service says it took 20 victims of the Houthi drone attack in Eliat to a hospital in the city. So they include 2 men in their 60s in serious condition, and then others not so seriously injured. So just keeps happening.
One thing, is it supposed to still be doing the music down there?
Well, there is a lag downstairs. I don't know. Is it the current events?
I just came up and it was still doing.
Oh, that's no one evidently turned it on. That's Rumble.
Yeah, I will fix it.
Yeah. Thanks, Johnny. We didn't. Well, Dave and Janice not being with us, so Dave usually gets that turned on downstairs. So that, as Jenny said, we give a shout out to Dave and Janice. Hope they're probably not able to watch tonight, but we are hoping Janice gets home tonight. We'll talk more about that later. But antichrist leaders are lining up to endorse a Palestinian state. Some of you have seen that. Here's a list of the most recent. It includes France, Belgium, United Kingdom, and sadly even Canada, Australia, Portugal, Ireland, Spain, Norway, and Slovenia. Just remember that most of Ireland is Catholic, and so then they identify with the occupiers. I mean the people being occupied. The Palestinians claim that Israel is occupying their land, and I grew up with the whole IRA war where they claimed, you know, they wanted freedom in their own land, all that sort of thing. So that explains that. But Spain, Norway, and Slovenia we mentioned already. And these recognitions reflect a growing international consensus, particularly among European and global South nations, in support of Palestinian statehood, often tied to the pursuit of a negotiated two-state solution. It's the spirit of Antichrist. Joel chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, it tells you that God's going to come back and judge these people who are, this is all about parting his land. Yeah. Exactly what Joel prophesied. Yeah. Trump at the UN yesterday, how many of you saw that speech? Oh man, it was, and I've told you, I don't listen to all his speeches. He can kind of be repetitive, ramble, and go on and everything. I love what he's doing. I don't hide that at all. But you need to go watch that. It was the most incredible thing. He basically just stood up there and told the UN how crooked they are. It was amazing. But in the course of his remarks regarding Israel, he said that recognizing a Palestine state encourages conflict. It accedes to Hamas's ransom demands. They're rewarding Hamas for what they've done. They're rewarding them for the murder of Jews and the hostages that they won't give up. Just think of how sick, and the word is evil, and this guy got it right. He's a Canadian legislator, believe it or not. And I just want you to listen to this.
Ignoring the massacre of 8 Canadians on October 7th, siding with their killers, dehumanizing their families, the hostages still held, and over 1,200 stolen souls is evil. Granting a state to those who practice state terror as statecraft, who pay pensions for murdering Jews, is evil. Not requiring the state to even recognize Israel's right to exist is evil. None of their conditions were met. No election, no release of all hostages, no demilitarization of Hamas. Lying about these intentions is evil. Doing this on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, emboldening mobs and violence upon our Jewish communities, is evil. The fascism once buried in the last World War has risen again as modern terrorism. This isn't diplomacy, it's appeasement, it's betrayal. The Prime Minister has dispensed with human dignity and the rule of law. He's emboldened terror with the state. And Mr. Speaker, it is evil.
The honourable member. As a Canadian, eh? And, of course, the antichrist Pope supports and enables the Hamas Islamists and condemns what he's calling forced displacement in Gaza. They are in areas where Hamas is. There's a war going on. Israel is fighting a war. And again, he and everybody else they're being dishonest and asking Israel to do something that no other country in human history has ever done. And that is fight a war without killing people. You just can't do it, including sadly, some civilians and innocent people. But it really is anti-Semitism, and we'll just cut to the chase on this stuff. The Roman Catholic Church believes that they are the true Israel and that the land belongs to them. The Pope wants his control of Jerusalem, and eventually I believe it'll be the final Pope who will move his throne to Jerusalem. Amen. And then halfway through the tribulation, he's going to go in the temple and declare himself to be God. Right. That's how I see it, and a couple of you I know do too. But Prime Minister Netanyahu answers Tucker Carlson's questions about the Jews. I don't know if you saw this, part of an interview with Dinesh D'Souza.
In a recent exchange between Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson said, "Are you saying that the Jews in Israel under Netanyahu are the descendants of the ancient Israelites who are described in the Bible?"
Of course, there's no question about it. The Jews spread from this land to various parts of Europe, to the Middle East and elsewhere. But we never forgot this land. We said, next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. My great-grandfather came here in the 19th century. Most of the Palestinians who are alive today came after him. So that's what our history has been. On the one hand, regaining our ancient ancestral homeland. On the other, developing a state that becomes a juggernaut of technology and development. We're Silicon Valley in the Middle East, a democratic society in the face of enormous attacks of countries that want to annihilate us every day. Who is Tucker Carlson defending here? These are people who chant, "Death to America." They're after you. They want to destroy Western civilization. They want to destroy everything that America stands for. They say Israel is a small Satan. The big Satan is America. The only place where Christians are safe in the Middle East is in Israel. Not tolerated, welcomed. They participate in our society. We take care of the holy places, which are destroyed everywhere else. Churches blown up throughout the Middle East. So if Tucker Carlson is asking you that, then he has no idea, not of Jewish history, but of history. Who are these so-called defenders of MAGA defending? They're defending the worst enemies on the planet against America. They're not MAGA. The people who speak of MAGA, they love America, and they love America's values, and they don't identify with the worst enemies that America is facing today in the world. President Donald J. Trump, the greatest friend that Israel has ever had, he understands that we're fighting a common enemy. Iran wants to destroy you. We stand in their way. I'm very proud of the fact that Israel is the front line of this battle of civilization against the barbarism that threatens all free societies.
The dragon's prophecy.
So, America First means you stand with your allies. Anybody who says they're America first and says it's America only, that's not America first. That's totally anti-American. We stand with our allies. And then there's Candace Owens. I believe she has a devil in her. I watched enough over the last few weeks, and I think the woman's possessed. I don't believe there's ever been any sincere profession of faith in the gospel. She called herself a Christian, just kind of like some of these other people you might know call themselves Christians, but she converted to the Roman Catholic Church. She's now a practicing Roman Catholic. She did that knowing the Pope was a Marxist, first of all. Second of all, she can't believe the biblical gospel and convert to Catholicism. I'll grant a little leeway and grace for people who are born and raised Catholic and then they get saved, and then they may not come out of that church right away, there's circumstances. But anybody claiming to be a Christian who then converts to Catholicism, that's something that I don't see any basis for believing that person is a real Christian.
Amen.
And so that's how I feel about her. But many people believe that Candace calls Israel a cult nation. She's actually saying that Israel is a satanic occult nation. And as you watch this video, you watch the captions are wrong. And you'll hear people quoting her, and they'll say that she's saying that Israel is a cult nation. No, she's saying it's an occult nation. And she'll make the same occult accusation about things like the hexagram Star of David. So listen.
These characters are just being inserted into places to serve Israel. That makes Israel the master of the universe. And that's troubling, because this is a state that has a hexagram on their flag. Okay, they're even lying about the history of the Star of David. It's a hexagram. It's a cult. You can't just wipe that away. It's not even a long time ago. There's tons of books. It's showing you that that's a hexagram. What do you pretend? It's a cultic. Yeah, you're just another array trying to wipe it. You're like, nope, that's not. That is a religious. No, it's a hexagram. Okay, we're not stupid. We're going to talk about all of that stuff. I could rant about the lies that nation has told. I mean, not even that. The Star of David used to be the flag of Morocco. Okay, why? That's weird. It's not a Jewish state. Why? What was going on in Morocco? What's going on in Algeria and Tunisia and Morocco? Yes, it is an occult nation. There's no question about that. Everything that they are involved in is occult. And that's why we have to sort of wake the world up to this very quickly, because they have a lot of power. And the only way that we are going to be able to fight this is by being willing to tell the truth.
Did you hear that? She was saying it's an occult state, an occult nation. And this is an Israel news source who aren't supporters of hers, but they don't get it. They think that she's just calling them a cult. It's occult. It's, I don't know if I'm even, you can see the difference though, a cult and occult. And it is a huge difference that a lot of Christians don't get. A cult can be somebody who just has very controlling, there's fundamental churches whose the pastor is very cultic and he tries to control every facet of your life. That's bad, but that's still not satanic occult. Occult, O-C-C-U-L-T, is satanic. It means you're into the spirit realm of Satan, and it's all about the horoscopes and the astrology and the psychics and the mediums and any form of necromancy and all that. The Church of Satan, there's occult, not a cult. And it's really something that these people are missing that, because it's worse than they think. Now you know why we taught this last week. Because yes, it is a hexagram, but a hexagram is not always occult. Do you know crosses are occult if they're used in that way? You can find occult crosses in ancient Egyptian and Babylonian religion. That doesn't mean that crosses are bad. It means that crosses can be used for occult purposes. Same thing with hexagrams. So this is a satirical clip, but it pretty well sums it up.
She can connect any two events in history with yarn, thumbtacks, and unwarranted confidence. She doesn't need sources. She is the source. She once debated herself and lost twice. Intelligence agencies follow her Twitter just to see what they're doing next. She never met an obvious explanation she couldn't turn into a confusing 2-hour podcast. She possesses priceless secrets, but will share them with anyone for a small subscription fee. In her world, all roads lead to Israel, even cul-de-sacs. She is the most kooky podcaster in the world, but then again, the feds told us to say that.
And let me tell you, I haven't said much about her because I can't believe anybody with any sense watches her. A couple of years ago, she was talking so crazy. She's claiming Jews killed kids, Gentile kids, so they can use their blood to make matzah bread. I mean, she's all these blood libel things that have been told against the Jews for years, and she's telling people it's real. It's wicked. So we'll leave it at that, but we'll move on to other current events. And ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Europe, I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy catastrophe before it's too late. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. You know, the carbon footprint was a big, big thing a few years ago. I remember hearing about the carbon footprint. And then President Obama would get into Air Force One, a massive Boeing 747, and not a new one, an old one with old engines that spew everything into the atmosphere. He'd talk about the carbon footprint, we must do so. Then he'd get in and he'd fly from Washington to Hawaii to play a round of golf. And then he'd get back onto that big, beautiful plane and he'd fly back and he'd talk about, again, global warming and the carbon footprint. It's a con job. At extreme cost and expense, Europe reduced its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs, a lot of factories closed, but you reduced the carbon footprint by 37%. However, for all of that sacrifice and much more, it's been totally wiped out and then some by a global increase of 54%. Much of it coming from China and other countries that are thriving around China, which now produces more CO2 than all the other developed nations in the world. So all of these countries are working so hard on the carbon footprint, which is nonsense, by the way. It's nonsense. You know, it's
I mean, there's never been anybody stand up in the UN. But there's more. He then said this.
Global warming, not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change, because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling, all of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And
they cut it off there. one more short clip. And then he said,
In Greece, the number was 54%, and in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, 72% of the people in prisons are from outside of Switzerland. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration. Once we started detaining and deporting everyone who crossed the border and removing illegal aliens from the United States, they simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore.
yeah. And that's just a taste. There's a lot more to it. And of course, they had the press conference yesterday about Tylenol. And this is the list of announcements that they made that if you didn't see it for yourself, you wouldn't know, because the Marxist News Media made sure you didn't know. First of all, they recommend no Tylenol for babies when they're given vaccines. If you give a vaccine to a baby, they're giving them 100 and some vaccines, piling acetaminophen, or whatever you call it, Tylenol, on top of it, and it's causing neurological issues. Number two, the MMR is going to be given in 3 separate shots. See, they're not anti-vaccine. They're saying let's do things sensibly. Amen. The third thing is to label Tylenol. Should not be used in pregnancy except for emergency. Now, I brought a bottle with me. Now, they are acting like in the news that telling pregnant women to only use Tylenol in emergencies is like this huge thing and it's terrible. I bought this bottle several months ago. It says right on the bottle, if pregnant or breastfeeding, ask a health professional before use. It already says what they're saying. They're just going to reword it a little bit to make it a little stronger, I guess, but it's already saying it. And then all the news, fake news, bragging like, how could he say that? And I don't think I put it on here, but there's pregnant women out there who got TDS. They're purposely taking Tylenol now as a way of rebelling. Number 3, they're removing aluminum from vaccines because it's known to be detrimental to the health of the children who get the vaccines and the people getting a flu vaccine. Every year, they're getting aluminum built up in their system. Number 4, spread shots for babies out over 4 and 5 visits instead of giving them all these shots at one time. Number 5, hepatitis B vaccine only recommended for age 12 and up. Why? Because most people get it through sex and intravenous drug use. If you're not giving it to your baby before they're born, once they're born, they don't need hepatitis B, and 1 in 100 million or more will ever be exposed to it, and they won't be exposed to it until after they're old enough to be involved in that kind of activity. Number 6, validated autism moms who know vaccines are responsible for their child's autism. That's all they did. They just told you, ladies, you're not crazy. That's all they said. This is how the Marxist media reported it. Trump makes unproven link between autism and Tylenol. And that is a number 1 exaggeration, but it's a lie because it's not telling you about 90% of what was said. And that's just sickening. It was actually a Harvard professor, Andrea Baccarelli, who, this is a paper put out, colleagues and I recently conducted a rigorous review funded by a grant from the National Institutes of Health of the potential risks of, I'll just say Tylenol, use during pregnancy. They reviewed 46 previously published human studies worldwide. We found evidence of an association between exposure to Tylenol during pregnancy and increased incidence of developmental disorders in children. This association is strongest when Tylenol is taken for 4 weeks or longer. That's good information. Shouldn't they have been telling people this? These studies are decades old and they didn't tell anybody. As we noted in our review, animal studies have independently suggested that prenatal exposure to Tylenol can adversely affect the developing brain. This biological evidence lends support to the possibility of a causal relationship between prenatal Tylenol exposure and neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism. And I won't read the whole thing, but this is a statement from Dr. Baccarelli at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. So when people tell you that this is based on, they've actually pretended like there wasn't any science behind what they did. We're getting used to this. There was hardly any science behind telling you to wear a mask during COVID. There was no science telling you that staying 6 feet away from people would keep you healthy and keep them healthy. There was no science for telling you, as MSNBC's, Rachel Maddow and others were telling people, if you got the shot, you couldn't spread the disease. That was a total lie. There was no science for that at all.
Amen.
10 TV here locally, they couldn't just report the news. They went out and found one OBGYN of the thousands in Ohio to air an opinion without providing any opposing view. They interviewed one OBGYN who said that, basically the Trump administration wasn't basing anything on science, which is a lie. I just showed you. There was science involved, science behind it. But they didn't go and say, now we have another OBGYN who feels differently. And I'm not going to read all of them, but these are all different sources for the warnings about Tylenol taken by pregnant women. Numerous different, including the National Institute for Health and others. And a reminder that the teachers' unions are a wing of the Marxist Democrat Party. Teachers' unions aren't about teachers. They're not about students. They're about politics. They're about electing Marxists. They are about taking your children from you, controlling your children, calling you a terrorist if you try to control your children, and they want to indoctrinate your children into little Marxists. This is the former president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randi Weingarten. She just put out a new book, Why Fascists Fear Teachers. This is the name of the book. Hillary congratulated you, so you know already she's wicked and evil. Hillary says, congratulations to my friend, Randi Weingarten, on why fascists fear teachers. From banning books, that's a lie, to controlling curriculum, they want control. They don't want parents to have control. Authoritarians know parents. Go after public education because it's a cornerstone of democracy. That much is true. We are going after education. We are pushing homeschooling first and foremost because it is not the cornerstone of democracy. It's a cornerstone of you and I being free. A republic, a constitutional republic, not a democracy. But they're talking about the parents. When they talk about fascists, they're talking about parents who interfere with the Marxist sodomite indoctrination of children. That's who she's calling fascists. And the leftist sodomite propagandists at the Rolling Stones will explain it to you. Why fascists, when you see that, think parents, hate critical thinking. They don't practice critical thinking. It's pure brainwashing. And they say this, Randi Weingarten's new book, Why Fascists Fear Teachers, reveals why Trump and the right demean teachers, slash school funding, and rewrite history. Guess who's written this? Randi Weingarten. That's who's writing in third person about herself so wonderfully. For the Rolling Stone, a joke of a magazine. She says, under the current Trump administration, at both the state and federal level, far-right forces, parents, and wannabe dictators, parents, are smearing teachers, slashing public school funding, banning books, etc. This guy said this, I always thought Rolling Stone was a music magazine as opposed to a journal for fat, retarded lesbians who are trying to destroy Western civilization. I'm just quoting him. That's not me. Wasn't my words. This is an accurate headline here. Randi Weingarten projects her fascism onto President Trump. And really, she's projecting her fascism onto loving parents. Parents who love their children and don't want their little Sallys and Joes to be indoctrinated as useless scumbags like Karl Marx.
Amen.
There's a cartoon that somebody put out. We are once again calling for an end to the hate and the smears. Oh, and Trump's a fascist. See how these devils are just so full of hate and vitriol, but they pretend to be the party of love. The kindness brigade is what some people are calling them. Randi Weingarten is a servant of Satan and a self-declared citizen of Sodom. There she is hanging out with her crowd as president at the time of the American Federation of Teachers. World pride. Blah. But Ronald Reagan warned us, if fascism ever comes to America, it will come in the name of liberalism. And there's the list. See the difference? Socialism, socialism. Fascists, Democrats. Gun control for fascists, gun control Democrats. Fascists want to control the media, the Democrats want to control the media. Fascists want censorship, Democrats want censorship. Fascists were pro-abortion, Democrats are pro-abortion. Fascists worship the government, Democrats are worshiping the government. Fascists encourage violence, Democrats on the left are a violent terrorist death cult. History is repeating. Just in time for the Antichrist. Amen, amen. Be informed, pray, and act accordingly.